All right, well, let's get started. So tonight's reading is from Genesis 37, 1 through 41, 57. And the context is young Joseph, who was bratty and boastful. His hardships could have made him hardened and bitter. But God did something in him in the pit and in prison. We might only see the immediate struggle, but God can see new life in us over the long haul. So let's read again Genesis 37, 1 through 41, 57. Jacob lived in the land of Canaan, where his father was an immigrant. This is the account of Jacob's descendants. Joseph was 17 years old and tended the flock with his brothers, while he was helping the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. Joseph told their father unflattering things about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he was born when Jacob was old. Jacob had made for him a long robe, and when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of his brothers, they hated him and couldn't even talk nicely to him. Joseph had a dream and told it to his brothers, which made them hate him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. When we were binding stalks of grain in the field, my stalk got up and stood upright, while your stalks gathered around it and bowed down to my stalk." His brothers said to him, "Will you really be our king and ruler over us?" So they hated him even more because of the dreams he told them. Then Joseph had another dream. He described it to his brothers. "I've just dreamed again. And this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he described it to his father and brothers, his father scolded him and said to him, "What kind of dreams have you dreamed? Am I and your mother and your brothers supposed to come and bow down to the ground in front of you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father took careful note of the matter. Joseph's brothers went to tend their father's flocks near Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Aren't your brothers tending the sheep near Shechem? Come, I'll send you to them." And he said, "I'm ready." Jacob said to him, "Go, find out how your brothers are and how the flock is, and report back to me." So Jacob sent him from the Hebron valley when he approached Shechem. A man found him wandering in the field and asked him, "What are you looking for?" Joseph said, "I'm looking for my brothers. Tell me, where are they tending the sheep?" The man said, "They left here. I heard them saying, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. They saw Joseph in the distance before he got close to them, and they plotted to kill him. The brothers said to each other, "Here comes the big dreamer. Come on now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns, and we'll say a wild animal devoured him. Then we will see what becomes of his dreams." When Reuben heard what they said, he saved him from them, telling them, "Let's not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Don't spill his blood. Throw him into this desert cistern, but don't lay a hand on him." For he intended to save Joseph from them and take him back to his father. When Joseph reached his brothers, they stripped off Joseph's long robe. They took him and threw him into the cistern, an empty cistern with no water in it. When they sat down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with camels carrying sweet resin, medicinal resin, and fragrant resin on their ways down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What do we gain if we kill our brother and hide his blood? Come on, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let's not harm him because he's our brother. He's family." His brothers agreed. When some Midianite traders passed by, they pulled Joseph up out of the cistern. They sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and found that Joseph wasn't in it, he tore his clothes. Then he returned to his brothers and said, "The boy's gone, and where can I go?" His brothers took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a male goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the long robe, brought it to their father, and said, "We found this. See if it's your son's robe or not." He recognized it. "It is my son's robe. A wild animal has devoured him. Joseph must have been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on simple mourning cloth around his waist, and mourned for his son for many days. All of his sons and daughters got up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, telling them, "I'll go to my grave mourning for my son." And Joseph's father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold Joseph to the Egyptians, to Potiphar, Pharaoh's chief officer, commander of the royal guard. At that time, Judah moved away from his brothers and settled near an Edomite named Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he married her. After he slept with her, she became pregnant and gave birth to a son, whom she named She became pregnant again, gave birth to a son, and named him Onan. Then she gave birth to one more son and named him Shelah. She was in Chezib when she gave birth to him. Judah married his oldest son, to a woman named Tamar. But the Lord considered Judah's oldest son, immoral, and the Lord put him to death. Judah said to Onan, "Go to your brother's wife, do your duty as her brother-in-law, and provide children for your brother." Onan knew the children wouldn't be his, so when he slept with his brother's wife, he wasted his semen on the ground, so he wouldn't give his brother children. The Lord considered what he did as wrong, and put him to death too. Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Stay as a widow in your father's household until my son Shelah grows up." He thought Shelah would die like his brothers had. So Tamar went and lived in her father's household. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. Then, after a period of mourning, he and his neighbor, Hira, the Adullamite, went up to Timnah, to those who were shearing his sheep. Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is now on his way up to Timnah to shear his sheep." So Tamar took off the clothing she wore as a widow. She covered herself with a veil, put on makeup, and sat down at the entrance of Enaim on the road to Timnah, since she realized that although Shelah had already grown up, she hadn't been given to him as a wife. Judah saw her and thought she was a prostitute because she had covered her face. She turned to her beside the road and said, "Let me sleep with you," because he didn't know she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me for sleeping with you?" He said, "I will give you a kid goat from my flock." She said, "Only if you give me some deposit as security to guarantee that you will send it." He said, "What kind of deposit should I give you?" And she said, "Your seal, its cord, and the staff in your hand." He gave these to her, slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. Then she got up, left, and took off her veil, dressing once again in the clothing she wore as a widow. Judah sent the kid goat with his neighbor, the Adullamite, so he could take back the deposits from the woman. But he couldn't find her. He asked the locals of that place, "Where is the consecrated worker who was at Enaim on the road?" But they said, "There's no consecrated worker here." So he went back to Judah and said, "I couldn't find her. The locals even said, 'There's no holy woman here.'" Judah said, "Let her keep everything so we aren't laughed at. I did send this goat kid, but you couldn't find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law, Tamar, has become a prostitute and is now pregnant because of it." And Judah said, "Bring her out, so that she may be burned." When she was brought out, she sent this message to her father-in-law: "I am pregnant by the man who owns these things. See if you recognize whose seal, cord, and staff these are." Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I am, because I didn't allow her to marry my son Shelah." Judah never knew her intimately again. When she gave birth, she discovered she had twins in her womb. At birth, one boy put out his hand, and the midwife took it and tied a red thread on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." And as soon as he pulled his hand back, his brother came out. And she said, "You burst out on your own." So he was named Perez. Afterward, his brother with the red thread on his hand came out, and he was named Zerar. Chapter 39. When Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, Potiphar, Pharaoh's chief officer, the commander of the royal guard, and an Egyptian, purchased him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man and served in his Egyptian master's household. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made everything he did successful. Potiphar thought highly of Joseph, and Joseph became his assistant. He appointed Joseph head of his household and put everything he had under Joseph's supervision. From that time he appointed Joseph head of his household and of everything he had. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's household because of Joseph. The Lord blessed everything he had, both in the household and in the field. So he handed over everything he had to Joseph and didn't pay attention to anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and sometime later his master's wife became attracted to Joseph and said, "Sleep with me." He refused and said to his master's wife, "With me here, my master doesn't pay attention to anything in his household. He's put everything he has under my supervision. No one is greater than I am in this household, and he hasn't denied me anything except you, since you are his wife. How could I do this terrible thing and sin against God?" Every single day she tried to convince him, but he wouldn't agree to sleep with her or even to be with her. One day when Joseph arrived at the house to do his work, none of the household's men were there. She grabbed his garment, saying, "Lie down with me." But he left his garment in her arms and ran outside. When she realized that he had left his garment in her hands and run outside, she summoned the men of her house and said to them, "Look, my husband brought us a Hebrew to ridicule us. He came to me to lie down with me, but I screamed. When he heard me raise my voice and scream, he left his garment with me and ran outside." She kept his garment with her until Joseph's master came home, and she told him the same thing. "The Hebrew slave you brought to me to ridicule me came to me, but when I raised my voice and screamed, he left his garment with me and ran outside." When Joseph's master heard the thing his wife had told him, "This is what your servant did to me," he was incensed. Joseph's master took him and threw him in jail, the place where the king's prisoners were held. While he was in jail, the Lord was with Joseph and remained loyal to him. He caused the jail's commander to think highly of Joseph. The jail's commander put all of the prisoners in the jail under Joseph's supervision, and he was the one who determined everything that happened there. The jail's commander paid no attention to anything under Joseph's supervision because the Lord was with him and made everything he did successful. Sometime later, both the wine steward and the baker for Egypt's king offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief wine steward and the chief baker, and he put them under arrest with the commander of the royal guard in the same jail where Joseph was imprisoned. The commander of the royal guard assigned Joseph to assist them. After they had been under arrest for some time, both of them, the wine steward and the baker for Egypt's king, who were imprisoned in the jail, had dreams one night. And each man's dream had its own meaning. When Joseph met them in the morning, he saw that they were upset. He asked the officers of Pharaoh, who were under arrest with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so distressed today?" They answered, "We've both had dreams, but there's no one to interpret them." Joseph said to them, "Don't interpretations belong to God? Describe your dreams to me." The chief wine steward described his dream to Joseph. "In my dream there was a vine right in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. When it budded, its blossoms appeared, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, so I took the grapes, crushed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Joseph said to him, "This is the dream's interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. After 3 days, Pharaoh will give you an audience and return you to your position. You will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just the way things were before when you were his wine steward. But please, remember me when you are doing well, and be loyal to me. Put in a good word for me to Pharaoh, so he sets me free from this prison. I was stolen from the land of the Hebrews, and here too I've done nothing to be thrown in this dungeon." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, "It was the same for me. In my dream there were 3 baskets of white bread on my head. In the basket on top there were baked goods for Pharaoh's food, but birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." Joseph responded, "This is the dream's interpretation. 3 baskets are 3 days, and after 3 days Pharaoh will give you an audience, and will hang you from a tree where birds will peck your flesh from you." The 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a party for all of his servants. Before all his servants, he gave an audience to the chief wine steward and the chief baker. He returned the chief wine steward to his position, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But the chief baker he hanged, just as Joseph had said would happen when he interpreted their dreams for them. But the chief wine steward didn't remember Joseph. He forgot all about him. Chapter 41. 2 years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing near the Nile. In front of him, 7 healthy-looking, fattened cows climbed up out of the Nile and grazed on the reeds. Just then, 7 other cows, terrible-looking and scrawny, climbed up out of the Nile after them and stood beside them on the bank of the Nile. The terrible-looking, scrawny cows devoured the 7 healthy-looking, fattened cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He went back to sleep and had a second dream, in which 7 ears of grain, full and healthy, grew on a single stalk. Just then 7 ears of grain, scrawny and scorched by the east wind, sprouted after them, and the scrawny ears swallowed up the full and well-formed ears. Then Pharaoh woke up and realized it was a dream. In the morning he was disturbed, and summoned all of Egypt's religious experts, and all of its advisors. Pharaoh described his dreams to them, but they couldn't interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief wine steward spoke to Pharaoh. "Today I've just remembered my mistake." Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker under arrest with the commander of the royal guard. We both dreamed one night, he and I, and each of our dreams had its own interpretation. A young Hebrew man, a servant of the commander of the royal guard, was with us. We described our dreams to him, and he interpreted our dreams for us, giving us an interpretation for each dream. His interpretations came true exactly. Pharaoh restored me to my position, but hanged him. So Pharaoh summoned Joseph and they quickly brought him from the dungeon. He shaved, changed clothes, and appeared before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I've had a dream, but no one could interpret it. Then I heard that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It's not me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable response." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile. In front of me 7 fatted cows climbed up out of the Nile and grazed upon the reeds. Just then 7 other cows, weak and frail and thin, climbed up after them. I have never seen such awful cows in all the land of Egypt. Then the thin, frail cows devoured the first 7 fatted cows. But after they swallowed them whole, no one would have known it. They looked just as bad as they had before. Then I woke up. I went to sleep again and saw in my dream 7 full and healthy ears of grain growing on one stalk. Just then 7 hard and thin ears of grain, scorched by the east wind, sprouted up after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the healthy ears. I told the religious experts, but they couldn't explain it to me." Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Pharaoh has actually had one dream. God has announced to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears of grain are 7 years. It's actually one dream. The 7 thin and frail cows climbing up after them are 7 years. The 7 thin ears of grain, scorched by the east wind, are 7 years of famine. It's just as I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are now coming throughout the entire land of Egypt. And after them, 7 years of famine will appear, and all of the abundance in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. The famine will devastate the land. No one will remember the abundance in the land because the famine that follows will be so very severe. The dream occurred to Pharaoh twice because God has determined to do it, and God will make it happen soon. Now Pharaoh should find an intelligent, wise man and give him authority over the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint administrators over the land and take 1/5 of all the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. During the good years that are coming, they should collect all such food and store the grain under Pharaoh's control, protecting the food in the cities. This food will be reserved for the 7 years of famine to follow in the land of Egypt, so that the land won't be ravaged by the famine. This advice seemed wise to Pharaoh and all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find a man with more God-given gifts than this one?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God had made all of this known to you, no one is as intelligent or as wise as you are. You will be in charge of my kingdom, and all my people will obey your command. Only as the enthroned king will I be greater than you." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Know this, I have given you authority over the entire land of Egypt." Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. He dressed him in linen clothes. He put a gold necklace around his neck. He put Joseph on the chariot of his second in command, and everyone in front of him cried out, "Attention!" So Pharaoh installed him over the entire land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh. No one will do anything or go anywhere in all of the land of Egypt without your permission." Pharaoh renamed Joseph Zaphenath-Paneah and married him to Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, the priest of Heliopolis. Then Joseph assumed control of the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he began to serve Pharaoh, Egypt's king. when he left Pharaoh's court and traveled throughout the entire land of Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. He collected all of the food during the 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt, and he stored the food in its cities. In each city he stored the food from the fields surrounding it. Joseph amassed grain like the sand of the sea. There was so much that he stopped trying to measure it because it was beyond measuring. Before the years of famine arrived, Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of Heliopolis, gave birth to 2 sons for Joseph. Joseph named the oldest son Manasseh, because he said, "God has helped me forget all of my troubles and everyone in my father's household." He named the second Ephraim, because he said, "God has given me children in the land where I have been treated harshly." The 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph had said, the famine struck every country, but the entire land of Egypt had bread. When the famine ravaged the entire land of Egypt, and the people pleaded to Pharaoh for bread, Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph. Do whatever he tells you." The famine covered every part of the land, and Joseph opened all of the granaries and sold grain to the Egyptians. In the land of Egypt, the famine became more and more severe. Every country came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph, because in every country the famine had also become more severe. This is the reading of the word for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Wow, what a story. So, sorry if I got a little choked up on that. The Bible's just amazing. There's so many things going through my mind right now, and I need a cup of tea to sit down with. I would like to read the last part of this day in the Bible year book. And many times we may see the immediate struggle. It might be the only thing we see. But God can see new life in us over the long haul. Here's the question. How can you claim that hope today? As we go into the weekend, my prayer is for all of you, and also pray for the leadership here. Pastor Andrew, we look forward to this Sunday. I believe we're going to be launching a couple services, and be sure to invite someone, bring them out, and pray for everyone's health and safety this weekend. And thank you for joining for the Bible year again today. We look forward to the next day, and this is a great project. I'm so excited to be able to be a part and help, and I look forward to hearing Andrew hopefully tomorrow or whoever's going to be reading. We pray you have a blessed night, and enjoy your weekend.